So our agenda for today is on the screen now. We're going to talk about website maintenance, WordPress plugins you should be running, updating your website content, and some accessibility standards. And then we'll have time for some Q&A at the end where I can address any questions that come up during this time that I didn't get to or that you have that are still lingering that I didn't cover with the content that I provided. So the first thing we'll talk about is website maintenance. So your website does need to be maintained periodically, but thankfully we have some plugins that can help with that. So first and most important is Updraft Plus. This is a plugin that allows you to make a backup of your entire site just in case something breaks while you're working on it. This is the first thing that you should do when you log in to start making changes to your website. And I'm going to do a quick demo on how to use Updraft Plus for those of you who are not familiar. All right, so hopefully you can see on the screen, I'm logged into the Almond 20th Century Club Libraries website, and I'm here on the dashboard of their website. And if we look at this black bar across the top of the screen, just under the search bar, we can see Updraft Plus is listed here at the end of the row. So the first thing I'm going to do when I come to my site to make changes is go to Updraft Plus, and when I hover, this menu drops down, and I'm going to click on Backup and Restore. It's going to open a new page for me. And then I'm just going to scroll down here to this giant blue button that says Backup Now. And you'll click on that. And these boxes are checked appropriately. And then if I wanted to run a backup, I'm not going to do this now because I just ran one this morning, I would click Backup Now. It would start running the backup and I would see a blue progress bar move across my screen. When it's finished, it will let me know, and we can see down here under existing backups that on June 11th, which is today, a backup was completed. Another important maintenance item is to periodically clear out your website's media library. So this is the place that all of the photos and documents and other files that you've uploaded live on your site. So if you have summer learning graphics from 2018 or earlier, or some content from Christmas a few years ago, you can probably delete that content, assuming that you're no longer using it on your site. In fact, you can delete everything that's in your media library that you don't actively have displayed on a page. This is going to help your site run more smoothly and quickly, and I'll show you how to go through and bulk delete items in your media library. Okay, so here we are back on the dashboard, and over on this left-hand black menu, we see the word media appear toward the top. Let me scroll down. So here's media, and if we hover over it, a pop-out menu will come up, and we can click on library. That's going to open our media library for us. Okay, so we can toggle between this thumbnail view of everything in our media library or a list view here. So if we click this icon, it will display a list view, and that depends on your preference as to how you'd like to look at your items. In either case, you can bulk select to delete. So here we could go through and click the checkbox next to each item and then go to bulk actions and delete permanently. And if we were in the thumbnail view, we would click this bulk select icon, and then we could check all of the images or files that we wanted to get rid of, and then click on this delete permanently button, and it would remove them from your site. So anything that you're not using, for example, in this case, we could delete these RB Digital files because RB Digital is no longer a service that we offer, so we could remove those from our media library. So there are some maintenance plugins that we can run as well. These include something called Smush and something called Optimize. And what these are meant to do is just help your site run a bit more smoothly and efficiently. So if we continue to look at this left-hand sidebar, this is one of the main menus in WordPress. And as I scroll down over here on the left-hand side, there's a plugin button called Smush. And I'm going to just click on Smush, and it should open for me, and click on Dashboard. It's got some pop-ups, so we'll close that out. And then here, as we scroll down, we see this bulk smush, and it has a little 1. That's letting us know that we have an attachment that needs to be smushed. And what it does is compresses these image and larger files that we have on our website, compresses them down so that they load more smoothly when users come to our site. So periodically, I would recommend that you come over to Smush, check to see what's waiting for you under bulk smush, and then we can just click on bulk smush now.
Point out that often we're taking pictures with a cell phone camera, and the number of megapixels of that image is typically a native size of maybe the wall in your living room, but you're displaying it in a little 2x3 box on your website, so you really don't need it in that resolution, and it just wastes space and takes a lot longer to download because that's the resolution of it. So this plugin compresses it to make it download faster and makes it appropriate size.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. The other plugin that will do some work to help your site run more efficiently is called WP Optimize. So I'm going to click on that here and also go to database. All right, so here we can see this blue button that says run all selected optimizations. So it's already checked the appropriate boxes that we want to have. You can see these boxes are checked. Those that have exclamation points are a bit more aggressive, and I don't recommend checking those boxes. Ken, you can certainly speak to why we don't want to run those necessarily, and why these that are already checked are sufficient to optimize our sites.
We would use those other options if there was a problem with the WordPress database or one of the tables in that database, and that typically can happen with a plugin that runs amok, has some kind of bug in it, and we use that to repair the database. You know, goes more towards why we support certain plugins, because we know those are clean and updated and don't have those kind of issues. But a database plugin that has got a bug could actually create a table, and I've seen tables in excess of 8 gig in size for websites with like 4 pages because of a plugin that crashed and that completely destroys the response time of the page. So anyways, those are more maintenance type things and will get used when there's an issue with how the website loads.
Great, thanks, Ken. These others, as you can see, like this one, for example, clean all post revisions. We have 21 post revisions in our database. So when we run this optimization, it's going to clear those out for us and just make everything, as I said, run a bit more efficiently. So if you were doing this on your own website, check the boxes, make sure that these with the exclamation points are not checked, and then go ahead and click on Run Selected Optimizations. I'm not going to do that now. I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to navigate us back to the slides. And we're going to talk a bit more about plugins and the list that Ken mentioned of plugins that STLS recommends. So on the screen now is a list of plugins that has been approved by STLS, which just means that Ken and myself have gone through them, and we have experience with them, and we know that they work and do things that we want them to do on our sites and are not buggy or going to do anything negative to our sites. So if you choose to install plugins that are not on the list, which we do not recommend, just know that you're doing that at your own risk. And I really don't recommend it. If you need a plugin to do something, please reach out to Ken and I, and we can help you find one that will work or help you find a way to do what you'd like to do on your site in a way that is security safe and good for your site. So the plugins listed on the right side of the screen, particularly numbers 6 through 10, must be configured by STLS and should already be installed on your website. Do not delete them. These are necessary for security and the proper functioning of your site. We do need them to be there so that we can continue to maintain your sites. And if you need any help installing any of the plugins that are listed here, for example, if you log in and you see that you don't have any of these, please just reach out, send me an email, submit a help desk ticket, and it will get to me, whatever your favorite way of reaching STLS staff is, and we'll be glad to work with you to make sure that you're running what you need to be running on your site. And if you're unfamiliar with how to see what plugins you're running, I'll show you now how you can navigate to see all of the slides that or all of the plugins that you're running on your library website. So we're back here in the dashboard, and if we're on this left-hand side menu, we come down to plugins and then scroll over to installed plugins in the pop-out menu. This is going to load a page that shows every plugin that this website is running. And this is how you would check to see that you're running the list of approved plugins and just make sure that they're all installed and activated. So we can see these are all of the plugins that this site is running. So we'll talk about updating the actual content of your website, meaning the words on each page and the images that you're using. For example, uploading board minutes to your website. It is best practice that you do this after every board meeting. You should also post information about upcoming board meetings to your site to advertise when they are and where they'll take place. It's a best practice to be transparent about this information. So to upload your board minutes, I recommend that after you receive the file from your secretary or whoever is taking notes for the board, you save that file as a PDF, but a Microsoft Word document will also work. You would then name the file something that makes sense. For example, your library name, the date of the meeting, and then perhaps board minutes at the end of the file name. And then save it to your computer in a place that you'll remember. And then when you have that file all ready to go, it's got a good name that makes sense and describes what it is. It's saved to your computer in a place that you can find it. You'll navigate to the page where you want to upload those board minutes. So ideally, you have a page on your site specifically for board minutes where you're going to keep uploading these each time a board meeting happens. So for example, when you're ready to start uploading those minutes, you've got them saved to your computer, you're going to go to the Pages menu and click on All Pages. And that's going to load this page that you see on the screen now, which is a list of all of the pages associated with your library website. So I'm looking at the Almond site now. So these are all of the pages that the Almond Library has on their website. They, at this time, don't have a board meeting page, and that's okay. So we're just going to use library policies as an example. So I'll click on Edit, and that's how you open the page to make changes to the content of the page. And here we are. It's letting me know that I'm using the block editor, which I hope most of you are familiar with. WordPress made that change, I think it's been about 2 years ago now, to the block editor, which is just a different way of editing the page than what they had offered before. If you're new to it, when you log in, it might bring up this Welcome to the Block Editor screen. You can navigate through their little tutorial that will sort of explain how to use the block editor. Here, this is a classic block, so this block maintains the style and functionality of the pre-block editor era. And really it's just text that's listed here. But let's say you were coming here and hoping to upload a new file of board meeting documents. We'd click on either the plus up here in the top left corner to add a block, and there's also this plus here that will allow us to add a block. So we'll click on this one to add a new block. And if we have our board meeting minutes saved as a Microsoft Word document or as a PDF, we're going to want to upload those as a file. So we'll search for the file block in the search bar and then click on File. And then it's going to give us the option to either upload a new file or go to our media library. And because we have not already uploaded this file to our website, it's not going to be in our media library. So instead, we want to use the Upload button. And here it will show us the files that exist on our computer. I see that this doesn't seem to be displaying for all of you, but when I click that, it brings up a directory to the files on my computer. So I can search my downloads folder or my desktop to find my board meeting minutes document. So I'm going to pretend like today's workshop file is board meeting minutes, and I'll say open. And it is currently uploading the PDF of today's workshop slides to this site. And you can see here, it used the title of the file that I saved my slides as. So WordPress Workshop, June 2021, which is why I mentioned earlier that when you're saving your board minutes, you should use a file name that makes sense because it will display here as we upload it. You can edit this text. So if you forget to do that, we could change it to say board meeting June 2021, Almond Library. And you can edit it there if you forget to do that. It will just save you a small bit of time if you save the file with the name that makes sense. And then we would go to this blue update button up here to save the changes that we made to this page. And then when your patrons or anyone visiting your sites comes to look at these files, they'll see this download button, they'll click on it, and they'll be able to download a PDF of the board meeting minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this block because it is not actually board meeting minutes. And we'll go back to the dashboard. So when we're looking at our library websites, if you imagine it from the perspective of someone who's attempting to visit the library, It's a best practice to also have your library hours and current contact information displayed somewhere prominently on the page. So we can see here for Almond, they have their library address right here at the top, the phone number, and then their current hours. And that's a great place to have it. A patron or anyone who's trying to actually get to the library, if they've had to come to your website to find the hours, they're probably trying to come now or sometime soon, and they don't want to hunt around and dig for your current hours or find the address, especially if Google isn't providing the right information and they want to verify it here. So I would recommend either putting it at the top of the page like Almond has done here, or we can use a widget, which is what these items are on the right hand side of the page where we see find us on Facebook, search the catalog. These are called widgets, and we can also use a widget to display our hours information and our current contact information. And if you're interested in adding a widget, we do that on the dashboard under the appearance menu here on the left side, and then under widgets. So if we click on widgets, it's going to load all of the right-hand side column information that we have on our site. So it's the right sidebar, which we can see here near the top. And we can see that the current widgets we have displayed are the ultimate social media icons. So that's the Facebook and Pinterest buttons that were there. Search the catalog, which is the StarCat icon that was displayed with the search bar. Also Overdrive ebooks and audiobooks. Our digital magazines are displayed, and then an upcoming events list. If we wanted to add the library hours, we would search on this left-hand side under available widgets for a text widget. So here's the text widget. If I wanted to add this, I would grab it with my mouse and start to drag it up toward the top. So I'm holding and dragging, and I'm letting the page scroll up slowly but surely. And when we get up here, I probably want my hours to be just beneath my social media buttons. So I would say this is hours and location. And then here I would say Monday, 8 to 5, and go on and type in your content, hours and location, hit save, and then this widget will display on the home page in the right-hand side column. As I mentioned, it is helpful to have the StarCat widget on your home page in that right-hand side column. It does require some code. So if you don't have the StarCat widget and you're hoping to get it displayed on your site, please just send me an email and I'll be glad to help you set that up so that you don't have to write custom HTML yourself. And I'll also help you use this new StarCat icon that we have had for a couple of years now. If you're still using the old StarCat icon or something different, we'd love to see you update to this one that's here. And if you don't have it, you can get it from the STLS website, and I'll put the link to that in the chat. You can just right click on these files, like this one here, and click Save As, and download it, and then upload it to your computer. And you'll put it in the media library, or you can add media like this. And again, I'm happy to help you set up the StarCat search widget if you don't have one on your website and you'd like to see one displayed. Can I see your mics on?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a comment on the StarCat search box there.
Mm-hmm.
If at the time when you were doing curbside pickup only, you had us edit that to be your in-library catalog and it hasn't been changed back to the regular URL, then you'll want to check that out.
On that point, can I follow up? We would like a URL that just leads to our holdings only. Is that possible to get?
That is possible. That link. Well, which library are you from? Sorry, I didn't.
Cornell.
Okay.
Cornell?
Yeah. It's going to depend on whether or not well, it's possible, yes.
So if you are still running that local catalog search in the StarCat widget and you'd like to revert back to the full catalog search, you're not sure how to do it, just send me an email or submit a help desk request. It'll get passed on to me and I'll help you make that change. It's also a good idea to have a widget or prominently feature a link to the STLS Overdrive collection. You want to promote Overdrive, ebooks and audiobooks. Everybody who is a member of STLS, we all have access to the same shared collection. Certainly promote it. We're all contributing from cost share. We want our patrons to know and be able to take advantage of that. So I recommend getting the current Overdrive logo, which is here. Almond has it here. This is how their logo looks. They also have the Libby app. That's their new app that they moved to. It's been quite some time now, a few years for sure. That is the app that they're eventually moving to. There are some holdouts that still use the old Overdrive app, but we do recommend that you help your patrons move to using the Libby app, and also feature information about how to do that on your website. It doesn't have to be in this widget necessarily, but certainly linking to the STLS Overdrive collection is a great idea on those widgets. It's also a good idea to provide access to the databases that we all receive through the New York State Division of Library Development. So STLS maintains a list of those databases here. I'll put the link to these in the chat as well. You can find them on our website under the For the Public menu. You don't have to do the work of recreating this page. You can simply link to these databases in a menu or on a page about digital resources on your website. And then these we keep updated with the current list so that you don't have to do that work and then try to figure out which ones have been dropped or added. We'll do that for you, and you can just link directly to our page. Again, if you don't have this and it's something you'd like to feature, let's set up a consultation and I'll work to help you get this accomplished. Another resource that we all have access to is the virtual reference desk. Again, under the For the Public menu here on the STLS website. This is going to take us out to the Chemung County Library District site because their staff are the ones that man this virtual reference desk and help respond to these questions. It's a service that we all have access to, and I encourage you to take advantage of if you're receiving reference questions that are, really time consuming or you don't have the resources to answer. That's what this is for. So you try first to help a patron answer a question, and if you can't, or if it's requiring resources that you just don't have access to, please feel free to refer the patron or fill out on their behalf this virtual reference desk form, and then the Chemung County Library District staff will be able to help you get some answers. Also, another thing that you might want to link to on your website is information about the digital library card, which we started offering this summer. Again, I'm dropping a link to that in the chat. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this summer we started offering a digital library card because we knew folks were at home and might not be able to get into the library to get a library card. You don't necessarily need to link to the STLS page, but you can certainly right-click on this card image and save it and use it on your own website. And you can pull any of this information that we have here onto your site to talk about the digital card, link to the registration form, etc. And we've got some FAQs as well. So you're welcome to harvest any of this and bring it over to your site or link directly, whatever your preference is. Now I'd like to talk about accessibility. So last summer I did a whole workshop on website accessibility, and if you weren't able to attend, I'm going to drop a link to the YouTube recording in the chat. I'm also happy to talk about anything that was covered in that workshop with you one-on-one at any time. Just feel free to send me an email. So today I'm going to focus a bit more narrowly, specifically on images and alternative text, but I do just want to mention that you should be running an accessible theme on your website. Because I work with so many of you on your websites, I typically recommend a single theme, which is Spacious, because I know it well. I'm able to work with you to get it set up. It's a little bit customizable, offers some options so that you can make your website look a little different from all of the other member libraries who are using the same theme, but it does meet those accessibility standards because it is quite basic. I know it can be a little off-putting to think about having such a plain black and white site, but the benefit of a site that looks that way is that it's really user-friendly for someone who has a visual impairment and is using a screen reader. That high contrast between dark text on a light background is really good for that. If you need help finding an accessible theme, if you decide Spacious is not the one for you, I can do my best to help you find an alternative. Just know that I'm not as familiar with, there are a lot of WordPress themes out there, and Spacious is the one that I've worked with the most and the one that I can provide the most support on.
Excuse me, Erica. We our site with the Frontier one. Is that Frontier theme? Is that another acceptable theme?
So Frontier is an older theme. It's not as accessible as Spacious. It depends on how many columns of content you have on your site. I haven't looked at your site in some time, so
Okay. But,
one of the key components is really that high contrast. So if you have a colored background and then colored text, that's going to reduce the contrast component of it. And then really having a main content column and then the widget column is okay. But if you've got the 3-column layout still, that's a bit less accessible too. So Mark, if you'd like to schedule an individual consultation, we can certainly look at the themes and talk about that in more detail.
perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So next, going beyond the theme, another huge component of accessibility on a website is adding alternative text to all images. And I mean every single image. Even if you have to do that retroactively, that's a great practice. You can go through your media library and make sure that every image you have uploaded has alternative text. This can be sort of a big undertaking depending how long your media library has been developing and how many things you've been uploading. It could be quite massive. So you might want to go through and follow that bulk select and delete your unused media before you go through and do this alternative text. They kind of go hand in hand. So it's a great idea to clear out your media library and then go through to check to make sure you have alternative text for the images that remain. There are some best practices for writing alternative text. So I'll go through a couple of those now. So this is an example of some alternative text that would be associated with this image. So we see this man running up some stairs at a stadium. And there are 3 examples of alternative text that could describe what's going on here. Context definitely matters, which you can see. So we start out alternative text with no context, and it just says a mostly empty stadium. And sure, that kind of tells you what's going on in this photo, but we could be more specific. We could say Harvard Stadium with 2 lone runners. I guess there's a second guy. He's down at the bottom. I missed him. Bounding up the steps, which is a little bit more specific. And then the third gives even more context, which may or may not be relevant depending. So Harvard Stadium with cracked concrete pillars. So that's also helpful. It depends on, what is the image? How much context can you provide without going overboard? It's meant to convey the why of an image or a document or on a web page. So it's read aloud to users by a screen reader software. It's indexed by search engines, and it also displays on the page if the image fails to load. So to write good alternative text, you should add alt text to all non-decorative images. You should keep it short and descript, like a tweet, and you should not include image of or photo of at the beginning of your alternative text, and then leave it blank if the image is purely decorative. I would still err on the side of writing alternative text for everything you have. It's just, it's a bit unfair to those who might be using a screen reader if they can't glean any meaning from what's going on your site. So I'll drop a link in the chat where you can read more about alternative text. This is where I pulled this image from and these examples of alternative text on the screen. For non-traditional items like icons or an image that acts like a link, you're going to do something a little bit different. So let's say you have a Facebook icon. Alternative text should be the equivalent to the information intended by the icon, such as download PDF or visit our Facebook page. And then for images that act as links, the alternative text should describe what will happen when the image is clicked rather than what it looks like. For example, the alternative text for an image of a question mark that links to a help page should say something like contact support rather than describing it as a question mark. And then for complex images like a chart or a diagram or an infographic or something very complicated, alternative text should consider how to convey the information contained in that image using both alt text and then also adjacent page text. So you can see an example of what an accessible infographic and associated alternative text looks like at this link that I'll drop in the chat now. Lynn, that's a great question. I'll go into WordPress now and show you how you would add alternative text to images that are in your media library. So here we are back at our dashboard over here, and I'm going to go back to our media library. So here's media on the left-hand side. I'll go to library. And let's say we wanted to add alternative text for the Almond 20th Century Club Library logo. Here is the alternative text field right here, and this is where we would type library logo, almond 20th century club, library, green, dark green background with white. And then down here, I think it doesn't have a save button. We can just exit out and it will save that text. And here we go. When we click back, here's our alternative text that we just added. Are there other questions that folks have that they'd like me to answer? So Lynn, the way alternative text looks on a website, you don't actually see it because it's embedded behind in the code of the image now, because that's what a screen reader is picking up. Ken, do you want to talk more? Oh, Ken's leaving. Sorry, Ken. So what happens is, this is the image here. That alternative text lives behind it. So for folks who are just viewing your site, we're not going to see that unless the image is broken, and then that alternative text will appear in place of the image with a broken file link. But if I were using a screen reader, it would look through the code that's written in the site and then read to me what has been input in that field. And that's the point. Linda, I know you had a question about reordering content on a page. So this is the page you're referring to, right, Linda? And you'd like to see these be in alphabetical order, is that right? Okay. So I'll go ahead and log into your site for just a moment, and we can look at moving those items around. All right, so Linda, we're here logged into your site. I'm on the dashboard. I'm going to go over to the pages menu and all pages, and that's going to get me to the place where I can find the policies page and open it up. So I'll scroll down. Here's library policies. I'm going to click on edit, and now it has opened that page for me. So if I wanted to move the, let's say the leave policy or pandemic operations plan up into a different order, I suspect what you're experiencing is that you want pandemic op plan to fall in line with endowment and paid and unattended. Is that correct? But instead it's out here by itself and it's not part of the bulleted list. So the reason for that is that pandemic op plan is its own block. We can see that here when we click on it. So I can move it independently around, but these items here that are in the bulleted list are by themselves in a block. So what you would need to do is go here and hit enter, and it's going to add another bullet. And then we'd want to bring in the link to pandemic op plan. I'm not sure if it will carry over the linked text. So you'd have to come back and get the link. But that's why it's displaying these other links by themselves, because they are individual blocks rather than part of the block that has the bullets. Is adding a widget for Amazon Smile similar to adding a widget for other things?
But it would be the same as adding Amazon as a widget. It's just a link, you're putting it. So it's a widget, you're putting it off by itself. So it's text, and it's just going to a different Amazon URL.
Right. Linda said she has it on her page. So Wilsenia, I'll open Linda's widgets and we can see what they have. So we'll go to appearance and then widgets. This is where we edit them. And one of these. So here at the bottom, she has an image widget. She's uploaded this image that says shop Prime Day deals at smile.amazon.com, and then she has the link right here. So Wilsonia, if you wanted to do this on your site, you would come over to available widgets and then look for the image widget and then drag it over until it gets up here in right sidebar, and then drop it in the place where you want it to be, upload the image, and then add the relevant link. Marshall, I see your mic's on.
Yeah, I still have some questions about Updraft, because I would love to do a complete backup, so we could save, as Ken said, to Google Drive or any other drive. It's not something that's provided with Updraft. How do I know the size of my entire website? So I know that when I try to upload it, I've got, say, Google Drive, say I've got 2 gigabytes on it. how do I know how big my website is? If it's 10, it's not going to obviously load up there.
That's a great question. Erica, would you want to go to Updraft Plus and pick back up restore? Let's just take a peek real quick at how big Dundee. It does create it as a zip file, and that's the file that it's uploading, so it's doing compression on it.
Okay.
I'm curious what the size of the last updates were. So yeah, 582 meg is the total web server disk space being used by the. Looks like there's 2 backups for Dundee. I'm not sure how large the website is. I don't know if it tells us there anywhere what the compression ratio is. So I wish I could say there's an easy way to do that. I don't. Does your hosting provider charge you for disk space? And I guess another thing is you want to be careful of is whether they charge you for upload
Right.
rates or download rates, those
Right.
kind of things. Because different hosting providers have a meter fee for that. So
Well,
yeah,
I think I'll inquire about that. And you know, our website, there's a lot of, it's graphically busy, and I don't know how much space that eats up. But I'll do a little bit of research. So it's possible we could back it up to the servers that we're already using from our host, right? Assuming we have enough space.
correct, right.
And they're not charging too much for the uploads, downloads, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the default mode, is it's going to make a local copy on the server. One of the things that tends to be make it larger, one is just quickly check the size of the database to make sure it's not inflated for some reason. And you know, we would do that with WP Optimize, but there's other ways too. And then secondly is, you know, really all the current content on your website typically isn't going to be that large, especially if you use some kind of tool like Smush to make those images so they're appropriate file sizes. It gets to be if you've got a large media library of like a decade worth of stuff that you're not showing anywhere, but it's just sitting there and you're backing it up. So typically if you do those kind of maintenance things ahead of time, you're going to be fine with whatever file size that you end up
That's
with
the
for
first thing
backup.
I'll clean up. Is the media library. I'm sure there's a lot of old stuff there.
Yep.
And it looks like when it backs up, it breaks it down: database, plugins, themes, uploads, and others, which
Correct. Yep.
bag of whatever. Okay.
And Erica, could you click on the settings tab real quick? Just since Marshall and I have been talking about this, and I'll make this visual for everybody else. So these are the options of where you can link your account that you might have at one of these places and use that as the target for backups. It lets you, you know, those ones are by design built in. So, you know, it's not, you could create your own special Gmail account just for your website backups and take that, what do they give you, 5 gig or something like that,
Okay.
out of the box for free. And I don't know, Microsoft OneDrive, I think, is similar, and just you only use that storage for your website backup.
I want to make sure I understand this correctly. This is Mark Smith. There is a copy that's just saved on the server, correct? So what you're talking about is just an extra layer of protection. Is that correct?
Correct. This, you know, it's not impossible to make either break the entire website or break pages of it when changing themes or plugins, or those are typically the things. You install an update or you install a new theme and it completely wrecks what the look and feel of your website, and you want to back up a step. So Updraft Plus is a perfect way to make it so you can quickly restore that. I'll tell you, there is daily backups of the server itself, and but with that, you don't have incremental backups while you're working on it. So that's why a tool like this is great. I'll even tell you there's a disaster recovery version of the web server itself that is uploaded to Binghamton daily at our replication partner. So
it's
just another layer.
Yeah, that's the big difference. Because I just did it. You did Updraft. I went to my thing and went to my site and saved it, and it's on the server there now. But if I wanted to restore from that, it would only capture what it is right now. Any edits that go forward. That's the reason, the main reason to store a copy off the server. Is that correct?
Correct. Now when you're, then that's another way to look at the number of backups that might actually exist for your website. And I don't want to go too long here, but as you're making a backup to the server itself, the original site and the backup is getting backed up, and then it's getting backed up offsite at STLS too. But it just never hurts to have another layer in there. If you get where you're making changes daily and it's a lot of changes, then certainly helps us if you're using an offsite storage, because we're backing up multiple ways everything that's on the server, including the backup. So that's.
Do you not recommend backing up? Do you not recommend backing up to your own drive? I mean, this is like, so that site before was just half a gig. So is it just as safe to back up to your whole drive?
When you say your own drive, you mean on the web server, your website?
No, I mean on the computer that I'm using.
Oh, you can do that, but you've got to, this application doesn't make it really simple to do that. You either have to FTP it or email it, and you will not be able to use your STLS email account to email it, because we, for security reasons, block zip files from being emailed. So, the easy integration is the Google Drive one. Dropbox is a little tougher. Now, if you happen to use a Mac, well, even the Windows 10 application for Dropbox works pretty seamlessly. It just puts a folder in Explorer for you, or on a Mac, it puts a folder in the Finder for you. So Dropbox works pretty good too, I guess, for making it seem to be a local copy of your backups.
Thank you.
Can I comment on the idea of using, when we use Dropbox or Google Drive, a best practice would be not to use your personal accounts for those, but instead to set up a library account that has a password that is saved in a reliable password safe. Maybe it's in a binder of passwords that can be passed on if you were to leave the library. It's not uncommon for me to encounter library staff changeover where passwords are not saved and not passed on, or someone's been using their personal account and now we don't have access to any of the information that's associated with that. So it's the best practice to set up a library account.
And that's an excellent point. And of course, I'll just step out of my security ledge here for a minute and say that since STLS does not put a limit on the number of library accounts you can have, if you have multiple resources that should have their own individual login that happens to be the email address, then just ask us for a different email account for that, and that's fine. So if you want one that is, Marshall, I'll use your example. If you want an email account that's SSCL WordPress at stls.org, and you're only going to use it for something you're going to do with your WordPress site, then that's perfectly fine. We'll set that up for you.
Yes, please. One of the things I'm interested in doing a backup is, again, it's being backed up by our host and by you, right? I mean, is our site being backed up?
Well, in your case, since you're not on our server, it's being hosted elsewhere. It's not.
We're host monster. Okay, so
yeah, yep.
I believe it's being backed up there, but I would love to upload a full copy of the website and then be able to use it in an environment where it functions as WordPress. Like I'm on a Mac, so I'd use MAMP, which we have, and then I can apply themes to the backup without affecting our regular website at all. And if things crash, I can always go back to earlier versions.
And there are other plugin tools that you also can use for that, for creating sandbox environments. If you search the plugin list search for sandbox or replicator, or there's things like that, and that actually will save you some steps in giving you a full WordPress install of your website to put elsewhere to use in a sandbox environment. So you can do it by creating backups, but just you got a few more steps to unzip and create that sandbox site. So
Can I schedule a chance to talk with you about that soon? That sounds really great.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
email you.
Why don't we? We'll set up a time. In the next couple of weeks, and we can. We'll carve out an hour, and I can talk you through some ways that we might look at doing that. Eventually, we could host a sandbox for you. Right now, we're still working on getting a migration to another operating system for all our WordPress sites, and we're trying to take it easy on the number of new WordPress sites we're creating. But once we get there, everybody can have a sandbox site. So,
Erica,
Uh-huh.
this is Wayne at the Doorman.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi. We're considering changing our theme from Frontier to Spacious.
Yep.
I'm looking at Spacious page now on Add Themes,
Mm-hmm.
and I see when I hover over it, I got an install option.
Uh-huh.
Does that actually implement the
Right.
Spacious?
Yeah, Wayne,
So I don't
if you
do that.
install, it won't take over and be your new theme. It will install it to your site. And then when you're ready to move to Spacious, then there's going to be an option to click activate, and that is going to actually change it from Frontier to Spacious.
Okay. Can you change it back to Frontier?
After you change, sure.
So you can go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It is,
The reason
Wayne,
I'm
it's
wondering if there's a
possible
way
that
we
when
could
you do
do
that, it might break something. It's difficult to keep going back and forth, back and forth.
Right. So there's no
yeah, and
real,
that's where I would say absolutely have a backup when you're changing the entire theme. So.
okay. But just to install it now, I can still preview it and sort of look it over.
That's right. You can install it and then you can use that preview option. The preview is not a foolproof actual preview. It will mostly translate the content for you and show you what's going to happen when you make that change. But there may still be some differences when you actually activate that theme.
Okay. So about the only option when we go to do this is
Do it.
activate the theme and then just start making changes
Yes.
a
And
little at a
when,
time.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes. So if you guys are ready for that on Monday when we meet, that's what we'll do. We'll activate it and we'll see how it looks and be prepared to make the changes that need to be made to make the site function as it was before you changed themes.
Okay. Very good.
Great. Are there other questions out there before we all get on with our Fridays?
I just appreciate all this information. It's really great for you to let us know. And again, with the idea of being able to experiment with different themes without touching, our website out there, to create an environment where it'll function and I can literally run it and try to wreck it and do everything I can to make all the changes that we might want to do would be really educational and give us a lot of flexibility. And then knowing that it worked and that was stable, then we can make the change. So I look forward to that talk with Ken.
Yeah, Lynn, that sounds great. And that goes for everyone. If you have questions, you're welcome to just reach out to me. Yes, Melissa, if you would like to just get started from scratch on a website, let's set up a time for you and I to talk. I'm happy to just walk you through getting started from scratch. I think it will be, if you don't mind spending time with me, it'll be great to just set aside an hour or two for us to meet and go through that process together. And I'll put my email in the chat just in case you don't have it. And that goes for everyone else. Feel free to reach out to me via email, submit a help desk ticket. It will find its way to me, or Ken will address it if it's something a little more related to the back end of your sites. And we'll have more WordPress workshops coming up in the future. You found this through LibCal, and that's where everything will be. So we'll look forward to seeing you. Thanks for coming today.